Hello and welcome to Happy Foot Sad Foot, your LAFC gateway drug and the only LAFC podcast that has a dog park inside their stadium. I'm Travis Helwig.
I'm Vince LaRosa.
And I'm Darren Miller. Welcome to our preview of LAFC's MLS match versus St. Louis City. On Wednesday, May 15th at 5:30 p.m. at City Park. City Park. All one word, all caps, and in your fucking face. In St. Louis, Missouri, not St. Louis, Kansas. You can watch it on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV Plus, and we'll be live streaming our post-game call-in show 10 minutes after the final whistle at youtube.com/@HappyFootSadFoot.
Later in the show, we'll be having our Happy Foot Sad Foot quarterly review, and of course, we'll look at the storylines of the match and make some bets. But first, the part of the podcast the skip ahead 45 seconds button was invented for. It's time for listener-mandated banter. How's it going, everybody?
Darren, you're going to put like cool echo sound effects on that banter part and the city part and all the cool stuff that you did, right?
I want to.
I need
Sometimes I fall asleep while I'm editing, and then I just finish it and go to sleep.
That's fair. You let the machine edit? The computer does it for you?
I just push finish for me, and then I think to myself, what? I could have done that so long ago.
But you're an artisan. You like to get your hands in there.
I do. I enjoy it.
Codes with your digits.
Yeah. I finesse. You know. I maybe I shouldn't be saying this because then now I'll be held to a higher standard, which is not necessarily good because it's like I'm not great.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy.
We all
tinkering.
agree you're not great.
I sometimes forget that you have to go back and edit it only because when I did the podcast with Max, I was like, I don't have time for this. It's all going in. And the amount of times I would hear back, like, why did you guys leave that in? I was like, because I don't edit the podcast. They're like, well, could you guys, like, did you guys have a rundown? Did you plan stuff? And I was like, what? Why?
I will say,
Max and I hanging out.
When I pitched this whole podcast idea to Darren, I said, we don't need to edit it. We'll just put it up. We'll just put music at the top and bottom. And Darren was like, why don't I just take a quick crack at it? And the show is so much better because of it, as we now know from the first 15 minutes of the show being gone.
I was about to say, Darren, when he said to you, hey, we don't need to edit it, how much did you like perspire right away? And you're like, oh God, there's no chance that I am going to let this out into the world unedited.
I know what Travis sounds like.
We know you, Darren. We know that right away. You sense danger. Your spidey sense went off, and you were like, "There's not a chance in hell this is happening."
I established the floor in my brain, and we have not hit it yet. We must get there.
Yeah, and as you do with all things, Travis, you don't say anything. You just go ahead and take care of it. Like Travis doesn't want to know how the sausage is made. He's just glad that someone does.
I would say far too often I'm over explaining the sausage being made.
I would say wow, I just fully drew a blank. That is wild. I've been taking too many benzos. Moving on.
What is that?
What, like drawing a blank? It is weird.
No, I don't know what benzos are. I've only heard the slang term.
Benzos super old school. Benzo diet.
It's just like Xanax and Klonopin and Ativan are all benzos.
Travis so badly wants to be like a character from Boogie Nights and just use like Quaaludes and benzos and just like uppers, downers, greens,
what
blues.
What does Hunter S. Thompson take on his way to Vegas? It's like mescaline.
Yeah, which has nothing to do with mezcal.
No, and he hallucinates bats in the middle of the desert, but they could be real. I don't know.
Great movie. Everyone, this should have been the talk we had before we went to play Vegas, but
yeah,
here you go.
That's true.
St. Louis.
St. Louis is the Vegas of the Midwest. I'm always saying that.
Everyone's always saying that. I mean, it makes me want to go to St. Louis.
Does it?
What happens in St. Louis stays in St. Louis because once you go, you never want to leave. It's so much fun.
What happens in St. Louis stays in St. Louis because who gives a shit?
I just like to imagine Marco Royce leaving Dortmund. He's like, I got to go to MLS, new adventure in America, and shows up to St. Louis. He's like, wait, what is this? What's that big arch thing? Oh, is there anything in there? No.
Do you remember when there was the rumor that Messi, or was it Ronaldo, might go to Kansas City? Yeah. There was a real legitimate chance. Was it Ronaldo?
Yeah. Cristiano Ronaldo. It was not just a rumor. They legit had multiple presentations to him, and they were kind of like, I don't know what they did.
Well, I mean,
you have Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. But I mean, Saudi Arabia, they treat him like a prince, and Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I don't know. My theory on this, I've thought about this a lot. My theory on this, as far as like pro athletes go, is that if you're in a major city that's big enough to have a professional sports league, you're probably in a city that has like a version of it for rich people that is
now,
way
Darren, do you
different.
think Saudi Arabia and Kansas City are comparable in terms of what's fancy? A place that they will literally kill people for your comfort, or Kansas City?
No, I wouldn't say they're comparable in that regard, but I would say it's not the same Kansas City that you or I could experience if we went there.
I would actually
gotta
like to
disagree.
see this. I need to see this version of Kansas City because I have been there. And I
Isn't
just
there
don't- unless it's underground,
everywhere in America? Isn't there like, well, that's where the rich people live?
Yeah, but like
Sure,
that doesn't
but
mean there's like
comparatively-
culture or
Relative.
good food.
Sure.
Yeah, Ronaldo's not slamming some barbecue. That
Kansas
man
City
eats-
does have good food, actually.
I mean,
Yeah, they're not well for us, for the three of us, but for a man
Right.
that like has 15 abs.
See, but that's the thing. Like, these are people with their own personal chefs anyway.
yeah, I remember them saying Patrick Mahomes. They used Patrick Mahomes as an example of like you can become a megastar in the United States in Kansas City, but it's also like that's football.
Yeah.
That's like, and
Right.
the Chiefs are a team that everyone cares. Like they are established. Sporting Kansas City is not that, Ronaldo.
Right. Well, he made the right choice, I guess.
Yeah, and nothing bad comes out of
There's
going
nothing-
to Saudi
yeah.
Arabia. That's I
Doing
want to
business with
remind
Saudi
everyone:
Arabia
Happy
is
Foot
always the
Sad
right
Foot. From Happy Foot Sad Foot is sponsored by Visit Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Beautiful beaches, sunny skies, and definitely no slavery. Saudi Arabia is the place where you want to go if you want to be seen. Now it's time for storylines.
Brought to you by Visit.
Brought to you by Qatar.
Yeah, we take all the Middle Eastern money. We don't discriminate.
I love whitewashing nations that
Qatar.
murder their civilians.
Come for the world-class soccer and don't ask how the stadiums got built.
Oh yeah, that's the one with the slaves. Do they both have slaves, or is just Qatar?
Qatar's, I think it's pronounced Qatar, and I
Yeah.
can never wrap my head around it when someone pronounces it correctly because it's like that.
Because
It's hard to look at that word and hear that.
Qatar sounds generic, where Qatar
Well, it also
does
sounds
sound
like
like,
Qatar, like-
exotic the way that you would say it. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a place I've never been to. It's far away. And then they're like, no, it's Qatar. And you're like, that's just like a stupid town in like the middle of nowhere. No.
Yeah. Qatar is a minor league baseball team.
Yeah.
Come on, Qatars.
Yeah.
If anyone is actually interested in learning more about Saudi Arabia and Qatar football corruption, there's a podcast called World Corrupt. Our friend
Oh, yeah.
Giancarlo produces it, and it's hosted by Tommy Vitor, my friend from Pod Save America, and the famous one from Men in Blazers. I don't know, the one you know when you picture Men in Blazers. And they go like deep dive into the first season Saudi Arabia, and the second season is Qatar, and it's like way more corrupt than you could ever imagine. It's like horrific. So if you're interested, it's called World Corrupt. It's a great podcast. I would check it out. And
You
now
thought we were being dummies about that, but it turns out
we know stuff.
we have a recommendation for a thing.
I know someone who was on the National Security Council.
And that
told
is
me-
where the educational part of our show will end.
Every time I
yes,
get drunk
time
with
to
him,
be dumb again.
I ask him about aliens, and he won't say shit.
You know,
Really?
you should ask him what happened to Bruce Arena. He's got to know. They have to know.
Yeah.
That's a
I
national
bet
security.
That's
knows.
our problem. We keep asking within the soccer bubble.
Mhm. We got to
'Cause-
ask the national security apparatus.
Well, Bruce Arena, two-time former U.S. national team head coach, clearly has
Mhm.
some kind of tie into the government.
Yeah,
You
makes
had to get some
think.
kind of clearance for that.
Illuminati shit. A
Mhm.
lizard person. Maybe he's a lizard person. Darren, start the show.
Okay, starting the show now.
Darren, I brought up the lizard people before they hear. I'll start the
Go,
show.
go, 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 go.
Oh God! Oh God! Help!
They're real. Okay. Well, as king of the casuals on this show, I maintain a light, reasonable obsession with LAFC. My fandom takes up some of all of my Saturdays, and some of a couple weeknights too, and some of my wardrobe, and maybe some of my Twitter bio, but that's all. I'm not going to miss a match, but I am going to miss all the off-the-pitch drama, the transfer rumors, the stat trends, the tactical changes, and everything else in the build-up and aftermath of what I do see. Ball get kicked, ball go in net, Frenchman flip. Unless Frenchman assisted, in which case Frenchman hug teammate. And clearly, there's more to it than that. Luckily, my friend Travis, the human LAFC crazy wall, constantly assures me that my hunch is correct. This whole thing does go deeper than that. Way deeper. So every week, he memorizes every newspaper clipping, every photo, every string and push pin, and all the stats he's analyzed with his white paint marker on the one window he hasn't covered in foil, and gives us all of the most important storylines beneath the surface of each week's match so we can enjoy it so much more in a segment we call Storylines.
I can't believe the staying power of that song in my brain. It brings me joy every time. Thank you to the TikTok AI thing that made that. Darren, Vince, Dince, I don't know if you've heard, but it's a big week for the Los Angeles Football Club and its fans. This episode comes out Tuesday morning. We're here Monday night recording this episode. And I have on good authority that the day this comes out, Tuesday, it will finally be announced, officially, pen to paper, a delicious French baguette by the name of Olivier Giroud has signed with our club from July of this year until December of 2025. That's a year and a half of me sinking my teeth into his creamy, messy, delectable creme brulees. And for all those casuals among us, just how much baked goods does our French baker bake? And the metaphor now and keep going because it doesn't really track. Our new striker has won the World Cup. He's won the Champions League. He's won the Euros. He's won the FA Cup 4 times. He's won Ligue 1. He's won Serie A. And he also scored the 3rd most goals in the 2022 World Cup behind only Mbappe and a little man named Messi. That, I will remind you, was only 2 years ago. And if you have any doubt about his ability at his age, my AC Milan supporting friends are livid that he's leaving the club. One of them said to me this weekend, quote, "I'm sad he has so much left to give." But can he do it on a cold, snowy night in Salt Lake City? That said, his arrival is coming at the perfect time. As we walk into our midweek match up against St. Louis, our first storyline of the match is this. Has our front line finally clicked? After a season of misfires and disappointments, Kike Olivera has finally become the player we all thought he could be in the last 3 games. Kike has 5 goals. This following stat I got from LAFC Daniel on Twitter. Over 29 games, Kike has 8 goals for LAFC. How many goals did Brian Rodriguez score during his 64 games with LAFC? Any guesses?
I saw the stat.
Okay, so Darren, any guesses?
It's just like the stat just appears in my head. I just know it. Out of 60, how many did
Kike scored
Kike
8 in 29, and Brian Rodriguez played 64 games with the club.
9?
9 is the correct answer. Kike has over 30 games to tie Brian Rodriguez's scoring for the club. He has officially beaten the B-Rod allegations. I'm here to say he is not Brian Rodriguez.
Over.
Sound the alarms, baby.
Cleared.
He made it. We did it. Yeah, I should have prepared an air horn. On top of that, Bouanga looks absolutely ecstatic for Kike, trying desperately to get him a hat trick in the last 2 matches. And in that newfound supporting role, Bouanga got a hat trick of his own against Vancouver, assisting on all 3 goals that game, which I'm pretty sure is the first time we've seen that from him. I'm not sure. I didn't look it up, but I think that's I'm pretty confident that that's true.
I don't know if you need to look that up.
That's what I figured.
That might be the first time you passed 3 times.
Yeah.
Remember when he forgot to pass to Carlos Vela with an open net against Miami? Moving on.
Do.
And if Bouanga
I bet you Carlos never forgot.
Yeah,
that might be the problem with him coming back.
He saw the game last week. He was like, "What the fuck, man? You're passing."
He was like, "Okay, fine, I'm in."
Yeah. If Bouanga can open up his playmaking beyond just kicking the ball really hard, this team will be very hard to stop, especially when our big baguette makes it stateside. Vince, What's different about LAFC lately? Is it just execution, as you've said about, or has anything else changed?
It starts with execution, and then, as I wrote about in my takeaways, when the midfield functions properly, it just makes everyone's job easier. And that means defense. They shield the defense. Those guys don't have to worry about odd man rushes. They don't have to worry about guys running at them with speed. And then when they're dealing the ball and they're dealing with control, the front three can just do the things that they're good at and pick up spots like Bouanga did, let's say 25 yards out from goal and just go to work. And that really was what we saw against Vancouver. I mean, it was a complete performance by the entire team, but I have to say the midfield has never looked better.
Can we still call them the Dribbly Boys?
You know what? They're like, it's like Dribbly Boys, parentheses, at the right times. Like they figured out like dribble at the right times, pass at the other times. Like there's like a little.
I think they're dribbly men now. They're dribbly men now.
Now they're dribbly men.
See, dribbly men. Travis, that's why you're the writer. You're like, Vince, you used too many words there. Just dribbly men.
I used the time in which you said parenthetical to come up with it. So I had a little bit of extra time to figure it out. Darren, what do you think about me having a scoop that the club is announcing Giroud tomorrow?
I was wondering about that. Well, how do you know that?
I can't tell you my sources.
You have a source.
I'm a journalist, Darren.
Oh my God. Yeah. Last week has gone to your head. You're very important journalism about Vanni Sartini sucking Steve Giroud.
Here we go. We're back in it. Okay. What do you think they talked about it at the...
Yeah. Is this a storyline? I don't want to step on it, but if it's not, let's talk about it. Did anything happen?
Well, to our theory that he might have been doing it because they were so good. LAFC, again, so good. No pantomime.
So now we have control.
That's true. That's true.
So it must have been the refs. All right.
Maybe he was just upset and didn't want to do it that night.
He wasn't upset about the ref this time, I can tell you that.
That concludes our Vanni Sartini sucking dick minute. Moving on with the storylines. Every episode we get 1 minute to talk about Vanni Sartini sucking Steve Cherundolo's dick, and then we have to move on for legal reasons. So that's the positive.
And we're no longer sponsored by Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia doesn't want us. Really, Qatar doubled their investment?
I knew it.
So repressed.
So that's the positive. The team's been firing on all cylinders. But our second storyline is a little bit more negative, which is this. Just how hurt is our boy, Ilie Sanchez? Like we discussed on the postgame, our team was incredible on Saturday. Our front line was flying, our defense and keeper looked unflappable, and our midfield miraculously worked well together for maybe the first time this season. We had literally just said maybe it was time to move on from the Atuesta to Ilie experiment, and they immediately make us look stupid. Thank you to LAFC for doing that. But of course, it all might be too good to be true, because after knocking knees with a Whitecaps player in the second half, our captain, the smart choice himself, was pulled from the game. And at first glance, Ilie seemed okay. But then, with one shot of him on the bench, our hearts were broken. There was a brief moment on camera, and they talked about it. The commentators talked about it as well. Ilie was in tears in a way you rarely see a pro athlete in tears. He was in agony, either emotional or physical, and we have gotten no updates since. Ilie Sanchez did post a photo of a healthy-looking bowl that he was having for dinner, and that's all we've gotten from him. I just spit all over my microphone. But there was footage of him after the game walking, without shoes on, without a boot on, seemingly unimpeded, but that is incongruous with the shot on the bench of him in tears, where it seemed like he knew more than we did at that moment. Ilie is 33, which is basically 330 in midfield years. And a bad injury could set him back days. It could also set him back years. Darren, with Ilie getting injured right as the midfield began to cook, I think it's only fair to ask you, is there a God?
Yikes. I think that's a reasonable question to ask. And, I hope so. But even if there is, who's to say he'd be helping us with this particular issue,
Yeah, we don't know if he's a fair God.
Is there a God for this? God. Maybe not.
Or she. I said he.
Right. Yeah, probably not. But maybe.
Okay, probably not. We agree. Vince, let's say Ilie is out for like the next 3 weeks. Okay, let's say it's an injury. It's not catastrophic, but it's not great. How do we adjust our midfield without Ilie, especially since our roster spots are seemingly unfilled at the moment.
That is the issue, right? That's the toughest thing. Like, you lose Ilie, and he's not only a good player and the captain, but the knock-on effect from Ilie going out, then you assume that means Bogusz into midfield, which you feel comfortable with, but you pull Bogusz out of the front line after the front line's been clicking. Now Kai Kamara starting games when he played in Vegas, but he still looked a little bit off the pace and maybe not quite ready for everything. And then also your first guy off the bench into midfield, instead of being able to move guys around and put Kai in and put Bogusz back into midfield, is like an Eric Duenas, which Duenas did well, I thought, in Vegas, and he had a little cameo appearance against Vancouver, but these are not tested situations. And we just, to your point, we just got to the point where we're like, we feel pretty good about this. And now you're just having to move all the pieces around again after we literally had to move pieces multiple times just to feel good about this. So that's going to be the biggest problem for LAFC.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a world in which they try, especially on this, short break. It's 3 games in 7 days. They try Mueller up front, maybe, or they instead of Kamara. I mean, I guess Kamara has more reps, but you're right. He looked a bit slow. I mean, I assume Mueller, is that how you say his name? Mueller?
Yeah.
Mueller?
Mm-hmm.
Mueller is going to be the first sub for Kamara, right? It seems like he's won that spot from Buke.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like even from Nathan Ordaz, they like Mueller, and we
Buke,
like what
sorry. Yeah, I meant
we,
Ordaz.
we like what we saw from him. So, but again, it's like they had to shuffle some things around defensively. Now we kind of feel good about the defense, even though Hollingshead, we don't know when he's going to be back. So that's another thing. And
what about the Nepo baby striker? He hasn't played at all.
He's been playing for 2 at least. He scored 2 goals.
Great.
Thomas Angel scored 2
goals
goals for LFC 2. Yeah, I mean, the problem is he had an injury early in the season. When you have an injury in preseason, it sets you back much farther, because while the rest of the guys are flying, you're just trying to catch up, and you can never really find that kind of balance. And so that's where he's stuck at. But yeah, moving the pieces around right now, not ideal. And also the window's closed. So there's just nothing. You have to just make do with what you have.
Yeah. Until when does the window open? July?
Not until middle of July.
Will Giroud be here for Leagues Cup?
Possibly. So the window opens, but Giroud will be taking part in the Euros. Now the Euros, I believe, end July 14th. France is pretty good, so a good chance he could be there the entire time. And then you would assume he has, I mean, if France go to the final, win or lose, you would assume you're going to give him like a week off. So I would say the earliest he could be here is just before August, which I guess would be in time for maybe a group stage game, or I'm not sure what exactly. I can't remember exactly when Leagues Cup starts, but I would say if you're banking on Giroud to play in Leagues Cup, maybe in a knockout game, not in a group stage game.
I would love for him to play against Loudoun United. I think we need him. So with mixed feelings after Saturday, we come to our final storyline of the match, which is this. Just which St. Louis City team will we be getting? I'm sorry, I didn't say city the proper way. Just which St. Louis City team will we be getting? Last year, St. Louis was unstoppable in the regular season, coming in first place in the West in their inaugural season. But then they were brought dramatically back down to earth, losing in the first round of the playoffs against wild card 8 seed Sporting Kansas City. Since then, St. Louis City has looked, well, like a St. Louis team should. Pretty shitty.
Shitty. Capitals?
I was trying to say, like, the way St. Louis looks to the rest of the country. You know, like, it's not the way you imagine they would be. There's whatever. It's a bad place. They have 3 wins, 7 draws, and 1 loss, which is the most boring record a team can have. That said, they are undefeated at home. We'll be playing them there in a park that is notoriously difficult to play in because of all the dog fights. Last year, we played them twice, beating them 3-0 in the summer and tying them 0-0 in the fall. Vince, why is St. Louis struggling this season compared to last season, and how do you think we match up against them?
I think they're struggling because they didn't change much. I mean, they had a good season, but they didn't really augment it with any new additions, bigger additions. And you know, I think they had a good season last season, but they really did kind of drop off towards the end and then got knocked out early in the playoffs. And they should have been looking around and saying, okay, where can we get better? And I think they just decided to double down on what they already do. And so a lot of teams have started to understand the frenetic pace and the high press that they put on and find ways to get around it. Now, if you're going to count on anybody to understand a team that plays in a German type system, that is a high pressing system, it would be Steve Cherundolo. And I think that is going to be LAFC's wild card in this, is because he's going to be able to put something together and say, guys, I have solutions for you. As long as you follow the game plan, we can do this. And they played well against St. Louis. You know, they had the game at home that it was 0-0 until like the 76th minute, and then they kind of blew them out. And then they had the game in St. Louis, which we would hope they could have done better. But I mean, with where it came in the schedule, the fact that they got out of there with that draw was kind of the best you could do. And let's be honest, they subdued St. Louis for the most part. So it wasn't like LAFC just hung on for dear life. I like LAFC against a team like this because I do think that Steve has solutions. The only kind of unknown there is like LAFC's form on the road is just absolutely terrible. And I don't think that it's game plan related. Steve alluded to it after this game against Vancouver when someone asked, like, why can't you do what you did at home on the road? He said you have to ask the players. And Sergio Palencia had a similar thing. It was like, it's got to be on us. Like, it's 11v11. The coaches give us the most help we can, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that go out there. We have to execute. And I think if they can get rid of some individual errors and really focus the way they are at home, they'll be fine. It's not a game plan problem. It's just a mind fuck or something like that.
Maybe they need to go to some of the fancy restaurants Darren knows exist in these cities. Maybe they're eating too poorly in these cities.
They're not going to those rich restaurants at the top of the...
Yeah, they got to go to the rich people's version of St. Louis.
Also,
Darren,
if there is a rich person's part of St. Louis, is there but there's levels even to because if I know something about rich people, there's levels to being rich. So there's MLS rich, but then there's like MLB rich, and then they're obviously NFL rich, and they're not going to those places, right?
I mean, those people have their own arch.
Oh.
It's not even the same. That one's gold.
Yeah, it's made of cocaine. Vince, remind us again what players we need to know from St. Louis.
Their goalkeeper is incredible. Roman Berkey has been really they talked a lot about their press, but he was almost MVP level. And João Klaus is scoring again, big, sturdy forward. So I think at both ends and in both boxes, you look for Berkey to be solid for them. And then you got to watch out for Klaus popping up and headers. I mean, it's funny because he's a big man, but he can play his position. Actually, in some ways, not as good, but plays in a similar style to, I would say, Olivier Giroud. He can hold up play, he can pass a little bit, but he can definitely score, and he can mix it up with the ball at his feet.
You can tell definitely a much less gentle lover than Olivier. I think when you look at Klaus, you know that man is not a sweet man in the bedroom. Darren, follow-up question. Have you ever been to St. Louis?
No, I've never been to St. Louis. I think you asked me that the first time we played in St. Louis last season. I have family there. Oh, actually, no, they just moved.
Wait, you had family there and you never went?
No.
Darren hates his family.
I never made it out there. What?
Darren's parents listen, and before we record, he's always like, I hate my parents. I hate my parents. I hate my parents. It's crazy. It's like his warm-up before the podcast.
Yeah, we're always talking about my parents before we record the show.
Where did they move to that you will not visit them in their new place?
I believe Charlotte.
Oh, so when we play Charlotte,
no, it's not Charlotte. I think it's somewhere in North Carolina.
An equal MLS city. I went to a Charlotte.
I don't
game.
think it's Charlotte. It's somewhere in North Carolina. I'm thinking of a different cousin that moved to Charlotte.
We got to get to the bottom of this. It's important.
We're calling those parents of mine.
Yeah, we need a family tree diagram by the time we get done with this.
I do think it's worth remembering that this game on Wednesday will be a heavily rotated LAFC squad with 3 games in a week, and we will definitely be missing Ilie at least for this game. It might be a really interesting one to watch at 5:30 p.m. Just a reminder, the game's on a Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific.
So why are we even doing this?
So those are the storylines for this week's match. And before we throw to our quarterly review, I just want to say, if you enjoy the show, consider telling a friend about it. Besides supporting our podcast debts by becoming a Patreon member, spreading the word and helping to grow the community is the best way to help us keep making the show. So if you like listening, tell a friend. And now, some random ads placed between segments by an algorithm we do not control.
And we're back. Here at Happy Foot's At Foot headquarters, our success is driven by a relentless focus on quality and continuous improvement, and we're constantly striving to raise the bar and exceed our customers' expectations. We believe the numbers never lie, and if we stay accountable and take ownership, if we celebrate wins but don't get too complacent, if we learn from failures and mistakes, and focus on the big picture, small wins can lead to big victories. Now that we've made it through Q1 of the MLS season, it's time for the official Happy Foot Sad Foot quarterly review.
Touch base. Let's touch base, baby.
Let's circle back and touch base. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us in the meeting here. We have a lot to go over.
Glad to be here. Excited.
Yeah, we're all
Hi,
excited.
guys.
We're all very
Travis.
excited.
To be here.
Hey, Darren's on the call.
Are we waiting for anybody?
I think we're all
Anybody-
here.
is everybody
I'm gonna mute.
familiar?
I'm gonna mute.
Oh, okay.
Everyone listening to this is like, what is going on now?
Oh, I'm still pretending to be a potato. Hold on, I gotta turn it off.
I am
Sorry,
not
that
a
was for a
cat.
thing I did last night. Let's start with the draft. We haven't looked at the draft in a while.
I don't think we need to.
You know what, Travis? This is a quarterly review. I think we all need to sit tight.
No, I think we can move right past it.
No, we need to, because this is the only part of this review that's going to go well for
okay,
me.
we
I
know
believe.
you want to.
Let's just look at it. I auto drafted. Just want to remind everyone, going through a tragic event in my life, I auto drafted. But I
Yes.
have Ryan Hollingshead with
Mhm.
0 goals.
Yep.
Ilya Sanchez maybe out for many weeks with 0 goals.
Mhm.
David Martinez with 1
Also
goal
out
and
for-
1 red card.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, he also has a back injury, right? We haven't
Yep.
even seen him on the roster. Has
Yeah,
he played for
Travis,
LAFC
you
too?
currently have no active players.
Oh my
on
God,
your
you're
team.
right. And Antoine Griezmann, who I picked instead of Olivier Giroud, when I look, can I switch it out? It is actively impossible for me to score a goal. I'll give you Griezmann and Ilya Sanchez and David Martinez if I can get Giroud. I'll just have Hollingshead and Giroud.
Whoa.
That's a
Whoa.
bold
Will we honor
strategy.
this trade?
I mean, it really is the only way you can get into it, to be honest.
Sometimes we have to disrupt the industry, and I'm just trying to disrupt the game a little bit, you know?
That does sound disruptive. What do you, let's say, so Travis, let's say that Vince and I equally split all of the goals from Ilya Martinez and Griezmann if he arrives, which would be so funny. If Griezmann
Right,
does
if
end up
Griezmann
coming,
arrives and lights it on
it
fire.
would be amazing.
So if Ilya Martinez or Griezmann score a goal, you each get half of a goal moving forward.
Yes.
And
yes,
I get all the Giroud goals and the Hollingshead goals. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Okay, this is great.
But you
I'm backing
get
it,
the
baby.
one Martinez goal that did occur so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
You keep your
So
total
I'm
so
at
far.
1. All
Which,
right,
just
so
to cut
I'm
to the chase,
currently-
is your total currently.
My total is 1 goal. Again, auto drafted because of a horrific, tragic event in my life. Darren, how many goals do you have?
Okay, so I should also review it for anyone who's just joining us now. We each drafted 4 players, and Denny Bouanga was off the market.
Right,
That was the
right,
one
right.
rule. And Travis was not here, so we auto drafted for him. There was no quorum and there was no decorum. We just forced his team upon him. So Mateusz Bogusz, Edward Atuesta, Nathan Ordaz, and Eric Duenas. Bogusz has 3 goals, Atuesta 2, and that's where I landed. I'm at 5.
Not too bad. That's not too bad. 5.
It's not too bad. You know, it's
Bogusz was
about
our
where I would
leading
expect
scorer
to
for a
be
bit.
at this point in the season.
Yeah, you went for a mixed team. You went a little bit of experience, and then you got kids. You went half and
It's
half.
important.
You split it up.
It's
there.
important to diversify your portfolio and your
Yeah.
risk tolerance. You know.
Yeah. I just want to say Vince's second round pick is the steal of the draft. And we just need to
Absolutely.
say it right off the bat. Vince, walk us through your team.
Yeah, I'll just point out that I've been team Kike Olivera for the longest time, and he was my number.
true.
He was
You
the
really
number 1
earned
pick
this.
of the
earned
entire
this.
draft.
Picked. Yeah.
But then when Darren went Bogusz, which I hoped he would, I knew that I was going to steal Timothy Tillman, and I knew that this was going to
My
be
God.
a.
Are you telling me that you could have given me Timothy Tillman if you used your best knowledge?
Actually,
I
we
would've
did have
picked-
a.
I would've
we
picked
did have a
Hollingshead.
rule. You auto drafted by goal total from last season.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think I would have picked Hollingshead over Tillman anyways. But getting
then-
Tillman is huge for you.
Not to rub it in, Travis, but my last 2 picks are Thomas Angel, who has not really played at all, and Carlos Vela, who also is not on the team, like one of your players. And I'm still leading with 9 total goals because, again, the number 1 Kike Olivera supporter, he's just making me look good.
It's true. It's true. This is the ultimate. This is the big win for all the Christian Olivera naysayers out there.
And by the
Again,
way,
this is-
of his 5 goals in 3 games, the last 4 have been within about 5 yards of the goal, which is just a the best strategy, and if Kike, if you're listening, keep it up, my friend. If anytime you can shoot from 5 yards or less away from the goal, it is a strong sign of success.
Kike's
Ryan
like,
Hollingshead.
oh, okay, keep scoring goals. Okay, more goals. Okay.
Well, Vince is most likely going to mop the floor with us unless Giroud comes in and goes nuts. Let's move on from the draft. It's unpleasant for me to think about.
I just want to also note real quick, it is all competitions. So one of Olivera's goals is from US Open Cup. And also, Tomas Angel, as we mentioned earlier, has scored 3 goals in his last 2 games. So we might be seeing him. Sorry, has scored 3 goals in his last 2 games for LAFC too.
But that doesn't
So we
count.
might be
It's
seeing
not for
him,
LAFC.
and then he might be a factor as
Right.
well.
Proper. All right, keep going. Let's go.
Okay, so in our season preview, Vince and I made some predictions about what to watch for season-wide. We can check up on those now. The first thing we did was we both picked an underperforming team from last season that we think underperformed a little too much last season and will do well this season. I picked the Colorado Rapids, who are currently sitting in a comfortable 6th in the West, which is with the exact same record as LAFC. I feel pretty good about that pick.
By the way, they were up 2-0.
Definitely outplaying themselves from last year.
They were up 2-0 at home on San Jose and found a way to lose that game, and they shouldn't have. So you should be looking even better than where you currently are at with them.
Yeah, San Jose has had 2 big wins in a row after being the worst team in the league.
Yeah, and now the current worst team was my pick.
Yes,
the Portland Timbers, who are winless in 9 games, and
finally have a jersey sponsor as of today, Tillamook Cheese.
Yes,
that's a strong jersey sponsor. At least.
I like those jerseys. They only look weird because they were blank, and now they look good.
Yeah,
I didn't realize they were blank before.
Yeah.
But here's my problem with the Timbers. Part of those 9 games winless is 2 against LAFC, and in both those, they looked very good against LAFC. So I was like, they're a pretty good team. The problem is they're not playing Evander enough. I don't know. He's picking up injuries or whatever, and then they have Phil Neville. Like, I guess I didn't think, even though they added good players, they have Phil Neville. Like, that should have been my sign.
He's proving himself to be like a real anvil on the table for teams.
He loves himself some Phil Neville. I can tell you nothing is his fault, yet his team is winless in 9 games.
And then when he was coach for Miami, it was very similar.
Yes. Also not his fault. Somehow.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But when he left, the non-Messi players he coached started playing very well.
Yeah. He's left Miami and they are now top of the Eastern Conference.
And that's only because he left and for no other reason.
Yeah.
No, but even before Messi arrived, like Calendar was suddenly really good. And then you got like Kramaski kind of came out before Messi got here. Robert Taylor.
I think with Portland, whatever we're seeing that we like is the things that we like when we watch most teams. You're like, oh, I like Evander. He's pretty good. And look, I like Max Crepeau. He's a good goalie. The thing that they're lacking is any kind of coaching idea on how to win games.
Man, that's rough.
We also begrudgingly agreed that the Galaxy should be a lot better. I, of course, was not on the show, but let's just say that was my pick, and it was a weird take for me to have. I love the
Travis,
Galaxy.
you're so hot in the Galaxy this year, I guess.
Yeah, I just think I love Cosmo. I think Cosmo deserves it. He's been through a lot.
It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, but he's been abandoning. He hasn't been on his home planet in years. He's all alone. He needs this is all he has. He lives
so it's
in
a pity vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I can get behind that.
I will say the Galaxy have had their best year in 7 or 8 years, and we have easily had our worst, and we are only 1 point behind them. We all think we're playing terribly. Our roster is not built out at all. The Galaxy are feeling great about their team, and they only sit 1 point ahead of us. They're currently 3rd in the West. So they are good. They're definitely the best Galaxy team we've ever played. But I know we're still unsure of our team. I do think over the length of the season, we might still be better than the Galaxy, but I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Well, it is interesting how well timed the July 4th game is starting to suddenly be somehow.
Right before we get Giroud. I wish we had him for like a Zlatan style.
Guarantee MLS wishes we had him too, but if they could make it happen, they would. And by the way, that 1 point that they're ahead, I don't know if you two saw this, but people listening probably did. Yeah. They stole a point in the final minute, and literally all the RSL goalkeeper had to do was catch the ball. just come out and catch the ball. But he decided to stop and go like, hey, I'll see what happens here. And Miguel Berry's like, I'm just going to put it in the back of the net. Thank you.
It was a
I know.
wild play in like the last seconds of the game. And I was ready in the post game to say that we were tied with them. And then when I checked right at the last second, I saw that they had gotten a point and I didn't understand it. I thought my original math was wrong. And I saw the highlight. That keeper fucked up so bad.
One of the easier ones too. Darren, watch it. It's not even like the ball's like above his head, or it's literally like waist high. And he comes out and his hands are there. He's like, oh, I'm going to catch it. And he just decides to let the guy get in front of him and get the ball before him. It made zero sense, especially in a position where you're protected by the referee. Go in there and just blow that guy up and catch the ball. Game's over. But
yeah, he's gotta meet with our boy, with Crepeau.
Yeah, put your body on the line, bro.
Yeah, just throw yourself at the guy.
Yeah.
Well, damn, Chicho's been scoring a lot.
Who?
Don't remember him. Should we talk about that?
Let's not talk about that. Although I will say, somebody tried to clap at him on Twitter. He's been really good on Twitter lately. Somebody tried to say like, "Oh, I just love seeing Chicho cry," and he posted him scoring against the Galaxy in 2002 in the playoffs to kick them out of the playoffs. Which he's been good. He's been good on social media.
Yeah, and it's funny because it always seems like it's the LAFC fans gassing him up afterwards. It's like they don't have Twitter in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
We gotta start building out what we think Salt Lake City is.
I'd go to an away game there. It's such a weird city. I've been there once.
There's no Twitter, only snow.
The stadium is like, it's ideally placed. It's beautiful. Like you can see the mountains and everything, but it's not even that old. But it just feels old. Like there's nothing special about it. It's just kind of there.
The one thing I remember about Salt Lake City when I was there is that all the roads are the widest roads I've ever seen. It's like
I remember
9 lanes across. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's the thing that stuck in my brain too.
Oh, sorry. I thought at first you said the whitest roads.
Well,
I was going to agree with that.
That's more the people.
All right. What's next, Darren?
Sorry. We discussed in our season preview the open question of will Carlos Vela return to LAFC. I don't think there was a prediction involved. There was more like, do we need to start talking about how to cement his legacy, which is, interestingly enough, still also an open question. What's interesting to me about the situation we're in now is it seems like the possibility of him coming back is starting to fade, but we also have no closure.
Right.
So I don't know. It's like weirder than ever that it's so up in the air. Like, is there a possibility that it's just going to be like, well, that's it? Like no announcement, it's just, 3 years from now we're having the same conversation.
Is he gonna come back? What's weird,
he hasn't officially said he's retired.
Is because he was a free agent when the window was open. He's in this he's in this like actual good spot for him where he can just join a team. He can join outside of the window. So that's, to your point, like we've kind of just like given up on it, but like we kind of shouldn't, because he could theoretically join at any point.
Right.
It's interesting. Like I agree with you, Darren, that it feels like there's less of a chance. I do think two things have become clear. One is that he doesn't want to go elsewhere. I think maybe San Diego, if he did anything, but like he had a designated player opportunity in San Jose, allegedly, that he then used as leverage to try to get us to give him a designated player slot. We refused to give him that slot, and he hasn't signed elsewhere. So it makes me think that he doesn't actually want to go elsewhere. The other thing that I think is true is that news broke that they were LAFC was trying to push this like legend player slot, which was basically a designated player slot for like a team hero who's been around forever. And they called it the Carlos Vela rule. It hasn't been approved, but it hasn't fully been shot down yet. So there is a world in which
it hasn't?
I don't think so, because there's still a world in which we might get another designated player this summer as well, right? Like I don't think those rules have been announced yet. So I think there is a shot that he's holding out hope that that's going to happen. And then if they shut that down, maybe then he goes, fine, I'll take a max TAM or whatever. But he might be holding out to see if that rule is changed whenever they do that rule change in the middle of the season for some reason.
Interesting. That makes sense.
But to your point, I mean, I don't know. Generally speaking, I would think it behooves, because Carlos Vela is such a big figure, and I do think he deserves some kind of like send off, as we talked about in that episode, Darren, where we talked about him, taking the place of the Falcon, maybe not even just being the Falconer. He literally flies around the stadium, or naming
Yeah,
a
that was where
stand.
we disagreed. We should either rename the Falcon Vela instead of Ollie,
Yeah.
or he should be flying around instead of a Falcon on a hang glider and then
Or-
drop into
yeah.
the stadium before every match.
Or naming a stand after. And here's what's kind of weird is remember even just like a month ago, players talking about, hey, look, his locker's still here. We haven't cleaned it out.
Mhm.
So generally I am in favor of them saying like, for sure it's done, or there's still a chance, like, or saying, no, we're making it happen. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Maybe this team is like, I mean, a lot of these guys didn't play with Carlos, so maybe we don't have to think about that. Maybe it doesn't hang over their heads, but I would think it might be better for everyone if there was some kind of closure just from a pure sporting point.
And I do remember that before the season started, Buwanga tweeted like in support of Vela getting paid. Like, I do think that there is some internal pressure from players that want him back as well, even just as a leader. Although it would be weird if suddenly next week he's around because the team finally is working. Do we now take Kike Olivera out of the starting lineup when Giroud shows up? Like, it would be so strange, I think, to then want Vela in the starting three now that Kike is. I mean, maybe Kike won't be as hot in 2 months or whatever, and then it's not as hard of a question. But if he's playing like he's playing now, you would sort of have to make Vela a super sub, right? Like, the team is working, or at least the front line is working for now, at least.
Well, and to add more intrigue, they just hired a new technical director that has nothing to do with Carlos Vela. That probably has his own ideas and his own players that he wants to bring in. And he has an eye for talent. He comes from Columbus. He was one of the people instrumental in bringing Cucho to the team. And even before that was at Celtic when Virgil van Dijk, who is just a transformational center back. I mean, he's got an eye for talent. He may come in and say like, oh, you guys had Vela plans. I don't know if that makes any sense because we have talked about it's got to be more than Giroud. And I think it's got to be more than Giroud and Vela. Like, there's got to be some other moves that brings this team up even a higher level. So
does that mean there's a possibility of Kike getting hot and us losing him right when he gets hot?
Well, the thing with Kike is he has already been playing with the Uruguayan national team. So Copa America, he will for sure be gone. And so you'll lose him for a little period. But yeah, Darren, I mean, there very well could be, if he's scoring goals and somebody puts in an offer, LAFC is definitely going to listen in the summer.
Yeah, you mentioned before, if we're getting Giroud, we got to get rid of somebody, or we will likely get rid of somebody.
Oh, I think he meant in the lineup though, right?
No, I didn't mean you don't have to get rid of somebody for Giroud. What I'm saying is like to do
just in general.
To do other things, you're going to have to get rid of somebody. I think to do, you have your DP spots, but I think to buy down Atuesta, you would need some money to come in first in order to take advantage of that DP spot. So I think Giroud is like, he can do that no matter what. They don't need any extra money, but then to make further moves, I think they're going to have to get some money coming in. Now they've got guys on loan that could capitalize, but if those guys don't, then some of these guys that are physically on the team now, you're going to have to find a way to generate some cash, some GAM or TAM or whatever you want to call it.
Spam.
Cram.
Okay, let's move on. We made the end of that season preview episode. We decided to make one bold season-wide prediction. We can check up on those. And Travis, I don't know if I missed it, but if you didn't, you should add one to the mix, a bold season-wide prediction.
You guys go through yours, and I'll think of one for me.
Yeah, now that you have a little bit of more knowledge, yours should be really good.
Yeah, for sure. I know my predictions always come true.
So Vince, you predicted. I actually love this prediction. Inter Miami will not win a single piece of hardware.
I mean, it doesn't look great, but hear me out. They already crashed out of Champions League. Sure. They're the odds-on favorite right now for the Supporters' Shield. But remember, that's a long-term trophy. And and if there's any team that has experienced injuries problems, it's been Inter Miami. And oddly enough, it's been the younger players that are all injured. One of these older guys, sooner or later, is going to pull a hammy or something. I know Jordi Alba's out for a little bit of time, but look, the fact of the matter is, if Messi's out for any extended period of time, that team is sunk, right? Like Luis Suarez relies on Messi. I'm just saying, you can look at it, you can laugh at me now.
This is a really interesting
but
prediction.
I still think, I still feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I think it's really tough for them to win hardware. Like it's really easy for them to win a game in a vacuum right now. And
Well, which kind of goes back to all the people that are talk about LAFC last year and how they were in 3 finals and they couldn't do anything and it's a total disappointment. Well, guess what? It's hard to win trophies. That's the point.
there was a bit of a
Fucking
scare.
point.
That's sports, baby.
Wasn't there a bit of a scare? Didn't
I'm
Messi
Vince
like?
LaRosa. That's sports, baby.
That's my catch. That's my catchphrase right
We
now.
finally got it. Vince's
Yes.
catchphrase. That's sports, baby.
Oh, I'm gonna sign off my newsletter that from now on.
That's sports, baby.
Those are the takeaways, and that's sports, baby.
You're gonna be the sports guy on the LA local news.
Darren, I like your prediction a lot.
Oh, my prediction was my heart likes it, but my brain hates it now. Aaron Long will have a career year that turns last season into a fluke of a season that is easy for us to laugh off in hindsight. That hasn't quite happened yet. I would say he hasn't been quite the disappointment this year that he was last year. He's been just kind of like decent.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's willing. I mean, he most likely has taken the starting spot from Murillo next to Chanot. Like, I think you can say that he's had a much better season this year than last year, just for the fact that we now want him to start over a guy that we thought was better than him last season.
Sure. It's trending. It's trending well. But I think the spirit of this prediction is like, he's going to be a monster. We're going to be like, fuck yeah, Aaron Long by the end of the season.
Well,
We can get there. We can get there. But
I mean, look, he's fighting with a lot of the preconceived notions about him from not even from LAFC, but just in general. A lot of people don't like him on the national team, which has absolutely nothing to do with LAFC or any other team he's played for prior to this. But I'll say this: Murray looked so good next to Giorgio Chiellini, and now Long is next to a player that plays in a similar style to Giorgio in Chanot. And I think we are going to start to see him be able to kind of unleash his physical abilities. And he is going to be kind of that monster, whereas Chanot's kind of the guy that reads the game and plays the ball. And Aaron kind of gets in there and, saves goals and does the things that he's really good at. Hopefully he doesn't run into any more goalposts. But like that, what he did against Red Bull is like what he's able to do. And that's what makes him a really good defender. I think that's the reason why LAFC wanted him in the first place. They thought, look, if we're going to have a guy like Chiellini that's not going to have the pace, we need a guy that can then clean up behind him. So I think Aaron's just going to get better.
I do think one way that he could definitely prove that this season is better than last season is he scores 2 goals with his butt instead of just 1. Last year he had 1 goal with his butt. If he could do 2 this season, I think we got a winner, baby.
Yep.
I think this should be determined by at the end of the season. We simply ask Jeff Talk if this prediction came true, and if he can admit that it did,
that's fun.
then
Yeah,
I get it.
My Talk World Order tee available now in the Headfoot store.
Yep.
I came up with a prediction as you were talking, and I think it's really fun. And it speaks to the moment. I'm very confident in it. It speaks to the moment we're in right now, and it could feel so stupid in the future. My prediction is that Kike Olivera ends the season with more goals than Denny Bouanga. Kike Olivera will be our top scoring player by the end of the season. I think that's a fun, bold prediction, right?
Yeah.
I'm writing it right now.
Very bold.
Especially because he played so terribly. Not terribly, but he couldn't finish for the first third of the season. But we're in a moment where he's on a streak. It feels right.
I just want to remind him as captain of the Kike Olivera fan club and my number 1 pick, just keep shooting from right in the middle of the goal and 5 yards out, my friend. Don't worry about those shots like you had in San Jose. That was nice. That's a nice little cherry on top, but we don't need those. 5 yards out, 5 yards and in. That should be your new slogan, Kike. 5 yards and in.
5 yards and in. Just make the right runs. Don't worry about shooting at all.
Yeah. Just stand there and pretend like you're the post, and Bouanga will hit it off of you, and you will score his goals. And sooner or later, he will call you the Grim Reaper of goals, but hey, what can you do, baby?
At some point, it will be revealed that all of Bouanga's perfect passes to Olivera were shots.
Yeah, he was hypnotized by the coaching staff into thinking that Kike was a post, and that's why he keeps hitting.
Well, I do think the first 2 goals, he legitimately, Bouanga picked out the player. But I was watching the highlights, and on the 3rd goal, they were like, and Bouanga picks out Bogusz. I go, he absolutely was not picking out anyone. He was kicking that ball as hard as he could, and Bogusz happened to be there.
Well, that is our quarterly review. Great catching up and touching base and circling back with this team. It's an honor to be a part of this team.
I'm so excited for the next quarter.
Yeah,
I think we can really make moves.
I think
Q2 is going to be our biggest, guys.
Q2 is going to be a big Q for sure. When we come back, we're going to make some bets.
And we're back. It's time for a segment called Bet It and Forget It.
Bet it and forget it.
Every week, we end the show with a bet for this week's game. We make an outlandish prediction, something that almost definitely will not happen, but could. Each week, Travis and I put up $5. If no one hits, the money rolls over to the next week, and eventually, by the time someone's weird prediction comes true, they might win a good chunk of change. None of our bets cashed last week, so our bet pool is now $120. It's getting up there. I just have to say, my bet came so fucking close to cashing.
Yep. This has had the most intrigue of any Bet It and Forget It of the season. And in fact, when the Mother's Day video was posted, multiple people added us in the comments to be like, Darren didn't get his Bet It and Forget It.
I am so shook by this. I'm
Remind
devastated.
everyone what your bet was.
My bet was that LAFC will inevitably release a Mother's Day video.
Which they did.
In which players will talk about how much they appreciate their moms.
Which
as
they did.
Should. And they did. That part came true. And 2 of the players featured in that video will score in the game that week. We had a 3-0 victory with 2 players scoring, which gave me ample opportunity to hit on this bet. And only one of those players was featured in the video. In fact, not only was only one of those players featured in the video, they released 2 separate videos for Mother's Day. And only one of those players was featured in either video. The other video had neither of those players.
I only saw the one that had neither, actually.
Where are they hiding Mateus Bogusz?
I bribed someone on the media team to cut out Matty Bogusz from the video.
Show us the Snyder cut.
Release the Schneider cut. My prediction was that someone would be fined, not card related. That did not happen. But I have a prediction this week that I'm very confident in. And it's because it is a weird rotation game that I feel so confident in it. A player for LAFC will score his first goal of the season in St. Louis. We will have a player score their first goal of the season in St. Louis. That's solid.
That's great.
Strong. Okay.
Vince, what was your prediction last year?
Mine was
last year
that Hugo Lloris would save a penalty.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna kind of stick to that. It's not gonna be penalty related, but I'm gonna go another clean sheet.
Ooh.
That's rare on the road.
Yeah. Not just a clean sheet, but a clean sheet on the road. They have not had back-to-back clean sheets at all this season. So I'm putting it out there, but I feel like he's feeling it. He was diving for easy saves just to make everyone feel good about it.
It really did feel like
I felt very coddled.
Yeah. Just to really, I honestly wanted him to like look and point and wink at somebody and be like, you see that?
I half expected him to find me specifically in the stands and be like, you fucking happy?
Yeah.
I will say a clean sheet doesn't feel like that big of a deal, but I do think 2 in a row, and especially on the road.
Are we saying a clean sheet and a victory?
Yeah, let's go clean sheet and a victory. Now,
Okay,
0-0 does nothing for me. That doesn't make me feel good.
I'm not too excited about a clean sheet if it's a 0-0 tie.
Yeah.
I gotta say. Yeah.
Darren, what's your prediction that will almost come true but doesn't?
Oh, fucking hell. I was going to go back to the well here and do a Hugo Lloris assist. But I don't know how we feel about 2 Lloris-based bets.
It's like Romero starts immediately.
Right?
Yeah. I'm going to think of a different one real quick.
I mean, it makes it easy for us to track when we're just looking for the goalkeeper to do something.
I don't mind 2.
Yeah, I guess
Hugo
it's not
bets.
really
It's
overlapping.
Yeah, they're 2
It
different
would be
things.
awesome if both our bets hit.
Honestly, all 3 of our bets could cash this
true.
game.
Oh, clean sheet, assist to a guy that has not scored yet.
To like
my
Aaron
God.
Long. Yeah.
That would be amazing. That'd be so cool. And then we split the
Who
money,
hasn't
which
scored
technically
yet?
means Vince wins.
Who hasn't scored yet? That would be. It would be like one of the new, like Mueller or something.
Well,
like
would
that,
you
right?
count? Kai Kamara scored in an Open Cup game. Can we count Kai?
Let's count
MLS
Kai.
game?
I think
Yeah.
because I feel like
Well-
mine's the hardest of the 3.
Also, it'll be
Yeah.
history if Kai's goal will be history if he
Okay.
hits it. So like it's worth. So
Yeah,
we'll count
for
Kai,
sure.
but
First
like him
MLS
or Mueller.
regular season game with the team.
Yeah, him or Mueller.
Long,
Or Daz.
Dueñas.
Is it
There's people.
too soon to say.
Wait,
if Ilya is
Their
healthy
first
enough
their first goal of the season or their first goal with the team ever?
Their
Season,
first goal
right?
with the team of the season.
Oh, of the season? That's plenty of
Yeah.
people. Like
Yeah.
Ilya.
Yeah,
Not
but
that he's
Ilya,
gonna
of
play,
course, has one leg at the moment.
Yeah.
You only need
I
one.
gotta say, there's a world where like it was just the shock of the moment and he's totally fine and he starts.
Yeah, I mean, that would be wild. I would guess they'd give him the night off to rest because it's such a short notice, but you're right, it's possible. Well, we shall see. That's our show. Our theme music is done by the insane team of James Valentine, Nate Walcott, and Louis Palmer. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where all episodes and clips are available at youtube.com/@happyfootsadfoot. You could review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and follow us on social media. And if you made it this far in the episode, chances are you're enjoying the show or hate to listen to it and do it to make fun of us. And if that's the case and you want us to keep making the show for you to make fun of, $5 a month at patreon.com/happyfootsadfoot is how we pay our debts to the podcast gods that we have to pay to upload this show. Or you can pick up some Happo Sappho inspired merch by going to happyfootsadfootpod.com. Any support really goes a long way to keeping the show going and the community growing. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the 5:30 p.m. game live stream. I guess the live stream's not at 5:30. The game will probably be over around a nice early live stream for the boys. We'll see you on the live stream. I love you. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Vince, say your catchphrase.
That's sports, baby.
I'm comfortable with that being the new ending.
I love that.
I love you. Bye. That's sports.
I don't even
baby.
want I love you anymore.